question answering time on Locked On Syracuse. We asked you at the end of yesterday's episode, send in some questions. We will answer them, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. It's on Locked On Syracuse, and it begins right now.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you here on Locked On Syracuse. It is your Tuesday episode. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And today's podcast is brought to you by Upside. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Very excited for today's episode. As I said, we asked you, the viewer, to send in some questions to our Twitter, our email, put them in the YouTube comments. Today, we will be answering because you guys delivered. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you want to be featured in one of these episodes next time around, email us, losyracuse44@gmail.com. That is the digits 44. That is on the screen for the YouTube viewers. And also follow us on Twitter at LO_Syracuse. You can DM us there. You can tweet at us there, reply at us. We'd love to hear everything you have to say. So please do that. You can also just go ahead and pop your questions in the YouTube comments. Okay, we've got some good questions. I'd like to start, I think, in the email inbox. How do you feel about that?
I'm down with it. Let's do it.
Okay, we've got 3 emails in our inbox, which, again, amped about. Thank you guys for doing this. First one is from Fred. Fred says, "Hey guys, I enjoy your podcast. It's the best way I have of keeping up with Syracuse football here in Massachusetts. I have a suggestion for the Orange. With Isaiah Jones out for the season, I think they should move Oronde Gadsden back to wide receiver. With his talent, he would quickly become the number one you were looking for a week or two ago. Then to replace him at tight end, I suggest Dan Villari. Coach Babers said they were trying to find a way to get Villari some playing time because he's such a good athlete that would boost the front line by about 30 pounds where they still need some help. Dan is not shy about hitting and would help open holes for Sean Tucker going wide. With his height and weight, he can also catch and deliver some yards after catch. In the only series of downs he played so far at tight end, he was targeted once and caught a pass for 22 yards. Finally, being a quarterback, he could add a few wrinkles to the playbook. That reverse and pass they tried in the first quarter with Allen, think, resulted in a wounded duck of a throw." This was an email before Trevor Pena threw a bomb, I assume. That wouldn't happen with Villari, who picked up the nickname Danny Dime at Michigan, even though he didn't see much playing time. Well, thank you for the email, Fred. I think my response to this is that they kind of already play Gadsden in the slot. And I think their worry about Villari is that he just isn't seasoned and they have Mang there, so why use Villari?
Yeah, I see this as a sample size question for me. And I would love to have had a large sample size of Villari tight end snaps and be able to see what he can do.
Sure, yeah.
But I do think, right, this was a mid preseason camp to late preseason camp sort of idea. Once Del Rio Wilson was established as sort of the number 2 and the presumed number 2, this was a late in camp transition. So even though, we saw him once and he catches a pass and it's all fun, and there's 100% the benefits of, some trick plays here and there and being able to mix some things up. It is definitely an incredibly new position for him and something that I'm not sure where he stands on it. And if he was at the point where he should be getting those snaps, I think he would be getting those snaps. Max Mang, as you were saying, has stepped into that role and has done a pretty good job. I don't think he's necessarily been a huge plus or a minus at this point. I think he is sort of a net zero for me at this. So maybe, that is, a counter argument, I guess, to Max Mang, and maybe a pro give Villari a little bit more of a shot. I would be curious to see in this Wagner game that we approach this week. That's the figure some things out sort of game that you have this year. Maybe we might see a little more Villari late in that game if things go the way they're supposed to. And then we've got a larger sample size to think about in terms of the possibilities of him, even if not this year, continuing to expand what he can do next season, because I would assume it's going to have to be a pretty similar role for him. And you would hope that he's able to make some strides in the tight end spot.
I think I like the idea of seeing Villari more. Um, like Fred said, he's a big guy. He can hit. He could play tight end. He can catch the football. I'd like to see him on the field more. But I think where I don't like this question or this proposal is that I don't want to move Aronde. I think
Yeah.
Aronde is just so perfect in that slot position, and I get that it seems obvious to move him to the wide receiver one, but I think a lot of his success is coming from the fact that he fits so perfectly in the role that he's playing. So I like the idea of Fred, but I want to keep Aronde where he is. All right, let's move on to another question here. This one from Robert, kind of a similar question.
Yeah, we stick with Aronde.
Robert says, wish I had Twitter. Would have been a lot easier to DM you. Anyways, Twitter's free, by the way. Anyways, I play in a college fantasy football league, and I drafted Aronde Gadsden as a tight end. The whole drafted league is conducted on a Google Sheets. There's no platform we play on. First of all, just want to say that's sick.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
incredible.
awesome. That's awesome. He says, but now my fellow league mates and commissioners say he's not a tight end. He's a wide receiver. ESPN says wide receiver. Q's depth chart says tight end. Watching the games, it certainly seems like he's a wide receiver. What is your take on this? If you guys tell me he's a wide receiver in fantasy, I'll concede and I won't play him at tight end anymore. My argument, I had Kyle Pitts in 2020 COVID year, and I was allowed to play him at tight end. Seems like the same thing here. Thanks for everything you guys do. Huge fan of the show. We're a huge fan of you, Robert. We really appreciate you listening and you sending an email in. This one's exciting because we get to dictate something. Like our decision here impacts his fantasy league. I'm going to ask you for your opinion in a second. I'll give mine first. I think ESPN says wide receiver. Syracuse, the team that plays him, says tight end. I don't care what ESPN says. I'm following the depth chart. Also, the point that Kyle Pitts, you were allowed to use him at tight end, there's precedent here. There's precedent for a guy who's listed as a tight end who played a lot of wide receiver to be played at tight end. I say it stands. Aronde Gadsden is a tight end.
Bones, you hit that perfectly. Those were my exact thoughts. Pitts is the argument. Like, you have nailed the argument. Your case is set in stone. If there was no issue with Pitts, there should be no issue with Gadsden. My thought with ESPN as well is that Gadsden was a receiver originally. This is a new role for him. Like coming into that week one depth chart, we were like, oh, Gadsden tight end. Interesting. Like, what does that role look like? So maybe that's just an ESPN has not updated to that depth chart. And maybe they're just, he was in as a receiver to start last year originally, the idea. They haven't updated yet. I think you got to side with the depth chart because, even though Syracuse has had a good year, they're still not by any means under the ESPN microscope right now. So that is something that just could be a delayed change. But we have referred to him the entire season as a flex tight end. He is a flex tight end. And in that role is, the word tight end, A. But B, yes, you're lining up in different spots, but you are the primary tight end for this team. And even though that is a versatile role and mixes things up and sometimes has you, lining up in the slot, sometimes even out wide and mixing that, it is a tight end position. I think you have a case that is set in stone. If Kyle Pitts was to no issue, there is no reason that Aronde Gadsden should be an issue, except your league is probably cranky that he is doing outstanding for you.
I'm
going
to say it was a galaxy brain move to pick him.
Yeah.
Do not let them rob you of your genius, okay, Rob? You are a smart man, and maybe they're jealous, okay? You made a great pick, and you deserve – until he's not listed as a tight end by Syracuse University, that man is a tight end.
Look, I had the one cheat week. I don't know if it was a year or two, or I think it was 2 years ago. The one Taysom Hill cheat week where ESPN Fantasy let you start him as a tight end, even though he was starting at quarterback. I am very much on your side here, as long as that's what the position originally says.
Play
I am all for
technicalities, okay?
flexing a
Play
little bit, and
technicalities, Robert.
this is not even a loophole in that your guy's playing quarterback. This is 100%. You have the winning argument. You have a guy that is listed as a tight end and plays the tight end spot. I think your league needs to tip the
You're
cap.
golden. You're golden.
Tip the
All
cap
right.
to you, because you found a hidden gem in this draft in the tight end slot.
Let's take a quick break. We will continue to answer some questions here on Locked On Syracuse. But first, a word from Upside. From cringing at the pump to getting an eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant, inflation is hitting us all where it hurts, and it really hurts. That's why you got to download Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. I'm willing to bet that's you. With every purchase, you're going to be earning cash back thanks to Upside. To get started, download the free Upside app. Use my promo code LOCKED and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business, pay as usual with credit or debit card, and get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week. That's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCK to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code LOCKED. All right, we're back here on Locked On Syracuse. Matt Bonapardo and Valentine with you on this wonderful Tuesday.
Let me
We've
get a
heard
quick
from...
chime.
Sure.
Let me get a quick chime in before we move on. If this is a PPR league, Gadsden is averaging just about 17 points per game so far this year. So 17 points a game out of the tight end spot is incredible. So keep this argument going. Do not let it die.
You're the man, okay? It's Robert. You are the man. We've heard from Robert. We've heard from Fred. Now an email from Andrew. He says, "Hey, guys, I'm a big fan of the show, and I listen almost every day." Andrew, we are very appreciative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He says, "I know Wagner Week isn't exactly packed full of content, so I thought now would be a good time to bring up this question. I'm a sophomore at SU, go Orange, and obviously a big sports fan. My question is this. Should the NCAA just admit that it's a professional sports league that happens to represent almost every university in America? Let's be honest. What difference does it make in the era of NIL, whether a kid is playing NCAA baseball or AAA baseball? The hours are similar. The wages of the top earners are similar, and the venues are similar. Why not just admit that their athletes aren't amateurs? Treating the NCAA like a minor league makes a lot of sense. Players could have the autonomy of professionals, and schools could have the control of franchises. I know this seems like sort of a wacky idea, and it has its problems, but I think it could be a good compromise between athletes and schools. Curious to hear your thoughts. Andrew, thank you for the question. We very much appreciate it. Here's where my head goes out immediately. First, not everybody gets paid. Not every single person on the team gets paid. Second, it's kind of weird that this is where my head went to second. What does this mean? Like, what do you mean they're going to be a AAA team? Like, you're going to add them into AAA baseball? Does it only go for baseball? Like, what is the story there?
No, I think his point was saying that, you could treat it as though like, high level college baseball. It's not AAA, but just, I guess it's
pay everybody a
before
salary.
You would get drafted.
I don't know. I like where Andrew's head's at. He's thinking forward. That's what we love of SU students, but I don't know if this one necessarily flies. I don't see like he says, there are plenty of problems with it, but I just don't like the issue I mainly find is that not everybody gets paid. So would you pay everyone a salary? That's where everybody's going to be up in arms. And I don't blame them, but yeah, I don't know about this one.
My first thought, unlike yours, my first thought was I'm looking at non-rev sports. So outside of, football and men's basketball, there's really not profitable sports outside of a couple sporadic instances. So to take all of these non-rev sports and specifically like your Olympic sports, So I look at, soccer, volleyball, field hockey, stuff like that. These aren't necessarily sports that have the funding or the money to be playing or to be paying your players. And I don't know how you go about that. Like, yes, maybe it makes sense. And I think the one it makes the most sense in is, college basketball and college football, because it is the direct pipeline to the NFL and to college basketball or into the NBA for the most part. Same with college baseball and that, your core sports. But I think outside of that, especially when you sort of lack that pipeline to a professional league where, you are going to be making, big money, and that could go for like the WNBA as well, can get thrown into this league or into that fix. But like outside of that, there's not really the professional aspect where I go in there. I'm all for, the player rights and the player progressive sort of movement that we've sort of seen where they can now make money and have this capability with NIL to bring money in. I think that is a very, good thing for the players to an extent. I'm not a huge fan of some of the things that I've seen, but I think if you get into this professional thing, you lose student athlete, which, for what you could argue is a good thing. I don't know. That's not my take, but you could argue it. And then you sort of get into this, what is next, right? Is it a base salary? Is there a cap space per sport, per team? Now you've got, I don't know, a player making $100,000 a year per salary from a top tier Division I football team.
Also, what happens
And
to like powerhouses compared to group of five schools? You could just
yeah,
offer the schools with money could offer anybody an amount of money that a smaller school couldn't. So I
this is
like where your
against
head's at,
mine.
Andrew, but
I
I think
do.
there's a
I
couple
do.
of flaws. But we
Yeah,
appreciate the question.
I think it can be reworked, and maybe there's a better option when all is said and done where you can sort of get in the direction that you're looking for, because I can sort of see that direction that you're headed. Maybe there's a better way to get closer to that direction without having to go full on professional
Yeah.
and treating
All
them
right.
like, minor league teams.
Let's move on here. We appreciate the questions from Fred, Robert, and Andrew on the email. If you need that email, once again, losyracuse44 at gmail.com. Now we move over to the Twitter at losyracuse or at lo_Syracuse, excuse me, on Twitter. Hit us with a follow. We're nearing 2,000, so that's really exciting. We sent out a tweet today who has a question or a topic they want us to discuss. First one is from Tom. Tom says, when we play better teams like NC State, Clemson, and will Anai rely on Schrader's arm, or will they return to giving Tucker 30-plus carries? Offense has been shaky, and Purdue/Virginia aren't exactly the same caliber as those teams. I think that if Tucker's gonna average 2.9 yards on the ground, they're not gonna give it to him 30 times.
Correct.
Schrader's arm has been shaky the last couple of games, 100%, but it's winning them games right now. And I would also like to say the NC State game, not so much. I mean, you have a Wagner game to deal with things and kind of work things out, maybe. So you have to look at that. But also, there's a bye week after NC State for them to figure out what they're going to do against Clemson. If I had to guess, they're gonna rework the offense at least a little bit.
Other way.
But oh, really?
Bye
Bye
weeks
week
before
after
NC State.
Wagner?
Yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. I just want to make sure. Well, that changes the game.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting. Cool. Okay, so that bye week's right before NC State, so they have a ton of time to figure out what they're going to do against those teams. Because if if me and Owen, or excuse me, if Owen and I know that 6-game stretch is going to be really tough, guess what? Babers and I do as well,
Yeah.
and they're going to be in the war room figuring things out, so Syracuse can be ready for those teams. Am I still 100% confident they'll come out and play really solid offense? No, I'm not. But at least they're going to do what they can. I would be shocked if they came out and just ran the same offense against those teams.
Yeah, there are adjustments to be made, and I don't necessarily know if I can give like a solidified answer on this, because I don't want a solidified answer going into these games. I want you to sort of be able to adjust and do what's right and do what's working and that sort of ordeal. I think it's my cop-out answer, but it was my first thought, is to go back to your original, like the original question. It is going to be somewhere in between. You're going to
Yeah.
have to do both in order to win these games and to stay competitive in these games. So Tucker is going to get the ball a lot. He is going to get his carries. I don't know if it's going to be 30 carries, but you're going to need him to carry the ball well, because him carrying the ball well, or the threat of him being able to carry the ball and get the ball and be as explosive as we know he can be, even if we haven't necessarily seen those explosive plays outside of a screen pass in week 1 to him, uh, he has that capability still. And the defense knows that. And these opposing teams know that, because of, how he torched the ACC last year, game after game, just getting to a 100-yard game, 100-yard game, 100-yard game. So you have to be prepared for that. And in that, I think that allows you to throw the ball more effectively. Even if Schrader has been a little shaky, been overthrowing, decision-making hasn't been flawless by any means, Sean being a presence opens up so much for the passing game. So you're going to have to balance that in order to stay competitive in these games. So I can't say that you're going to only air raid, only throw, and really have to do that. And I can't say that you're going to give Sean the ball 30 times and he's going to have a field day against these teams. It's going to have to be pieced together with a little bit of both in order to be effective in these games and to be competitive and maybe sneak out a win or two in that 6-game stretch.
Next question is from at Carpe Beach on Twitter. He says, "Can Pena be Charlie Jones? Why aren't we getting the ball more to him? He's all about yak, yards after catch. Get this kid the ball. He wants to compete." This take I love. Do I think
I
he can
love it.
be? Do I think he can be Charlie Jones? No, I don't think he can be Charlie Jones. But I am willing to argue that Trevor Pena is one of, if not the best player with the ball in his hands in terms of the receiving core. That's excluding Sean Tucker. That guy moves really well. He's got joystick capabilities, and I think this guy's absolutely right. You got to get this kid the ball, because every time he has it, he's shifting, he's moving, he's doing whatever he can to get more yardage. I love seeing the ball in Trevor Pena's hands. Why not get him more invested, more involved in the pass game?
I side with you 100% on this one. I don't think he's Charlie Jones. I don't think he can be Charlie Jones, but I think his role can expand. And when we talk about Isaiah Jones and that injury, I think this is a guy that can be in that conversation and deserves to be in that conversation. And I think we're starting to see it a little bit in terms of his catches and his inclusion in the offense. It's starting to happen. I love the yards after catch is the huge thing, as you say, the shiftiness once he gets the ball. So there can be plays and there should be plays designed to get him the ball quick and let him use that almost running back shiftiness as a receiver right now to go out, break some tackles, maybe get some space and get those chunk yardage gains that you can see from a receiver, because I think he has that ability. And it should definitely be continued to be used moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, remember the Clemson game last year? We saw, like, I think it was a 61-yard touchdown, maybe 62-yard
Yeah.
touchdown from Garrett to Trevor. So we know he's got it, and we know he can do it. All right, next question, and possibly the last one, depending on time here, is what's the deal with attendance? What can Syracuse fans do? Why are they not going to games? I don't know. This is getting to a point where I think we're beating a dead horse a little bit. I don't know how much you and I can do to get fans to go to games. But, you know, everybody knows Syracuse is a basketball town. But, I mean, when you have a football team as good as this one, you expect at least 40,000 fans.
Yeah, I will apologize. I was sick on Friday night and didn't go after I told everyone that I would go. So that's on me. It could have been, let me get the exact number right. It could have been 34,591. I apologize. It was 34,590. But I don't know. We always say, and it's recurring, and you look at, what Kansas is doing as well right now. Basketball school, same record, sold out last week against Duke. It's cool to see. Why that's not the case in the Dome right now with Syracuse, I don't know. I am going to give a partial excuse, and I don't want to give this excuse, meaning I'm okay with the fact that there were under 35,000 people at this Virginia game. It was a Friday night game. I know a lot of Central New York football families have some sort of connection with high school football. So maybe that's a few thousand short, but that's not the difference. I will give your high school football families an excuse and an out on Friday night, most likely playing a game. But that is, that's getting you to 37,000, 38,000 maybe. That's not the number that you're looking for. Wagner will not be that answer.
No,
I hope
Wagner will
Wagner
not be
stays
the
with a decent crowd, 30 to 35, makes some noise. But the NC State game in 3 weeks should be sold out. And I do mean that. Like, should genuinely be pushing sold out. Comparable to last year's Clemson game in terms of crowd. Like, that is a game, barring the most unforeseen upset possibly ever from Syracuse football or losing to Wagner. It's going to be an undefeated team against a really, really good NC State team. Maybe you don't sell out, but if that crowd is not 44, 45, I would say that's a disappointment. You have to show out because this is a team that, and as you've heard from opposing reporters, opposing coaches, the noise in the dome has made an impact every single game in some capacity.
Totally,
What is
absolutely.
the false start counter is up to what, like 7 or 8
Something
at
like
this
that.
point in the dome? It is making a difference, and it is making a difference with 35,000 people there. Throw 10,000 more in there, it's going to be a nightmare for opposing teams. It really is. So go out, tell someone the tickets are cheap, right? You can buy 4 tickets for probably $50, genuinely. Your family of 4 can go there for $50. I know, right? Concessions are a little pricey, whatever. You can make it work. It should not necessarily be a price thing. The ticket prices are there. Maybe, oh, this is bold of us. Can we get there? I'll buy a 4-pack of tickets for someone if we get to either 2,000 Twitter followers or 1,000 YouTube subscribers whenever that gets here. So whenever that game is,
Valentine.
yes, whenever that threshold hits, I will buy a 4-pack of tickets. And
I
give it
prefer
out
the
to
YouTube
someone.
subscribers.
I would prefer the YouTube subscribers as well.
So
if we
let's
get
say
to
that.
1,000 on YouTube, I will buy a 4-pack of tickets for someone.
Look at
We'll
that.
do a contest of sorts, and I'll give it out. We'll mail them over to you or send them over by email. That is my take for today.
Love that from Owen Valentine. All right, well, with that, we bid you adieu. Thanks for making Lockdown Syracuse your first listen every day. Go get more on the ACC by making Lockdown ACC your second listen every day. Host Candace Cooper and the local experts of Locked On take you across the ACC in 30 minutes. Lockdown ACC, make it your second listen. I'm Matt Bonaparte. He's Owen Valentine. We'll see you tomorrow.